Hi, Leo there, folks. Hope everyone's well and life is treating you well. I've got a something to talk about today. I've been a little busy with a bunch of things and too many balls in the air, right? Too many balls in the air. But something did come to me today that I kind of have to share. My mother, my dear and darling mother, gave me a gift today, mainly to sort of a recognition of helping out and stuff like that. And she knew I love this kind of stuff. The box set, probably 6th or 7th edition, maybe 5th. Anyways, yes. It's this 5th or 6th printing, rather, of the original box set, and I love it, obviously. It's a lovely thing to have in my collection. I've had the PDFs, and I actually once played a game that somebody ran from the rules, but didn't actually have the rules myself at the time. Yeah. So, this is one of those things that people who have been long-time gamers, grognards, as they are sometimes referred to, and I am sometimes called one, this is kind of not quite the Holy Grail, but it is the core text. It is the originals, as it were, before the transcriptions and the changes and so on. So, a lot of interesting things to have about this. Like I said, I've had the PDFs for a while, and I played a little bit once long ago. I'll give you a bit of a story. My mom actually got me my first basic box set back in the very early 80s, because she got tired of me getting into hers. So, that tells you something right there. Now, this particular rule set obviously has not gone through all the various iterations and evolutions. It's rough around the edges. There are certainly some this is produced in the 1970s, so the print quality isn't as great. The artwork, well, we've certainly moved on from the artwork. Some of the artwork in here is not actually family-friendly, I will say. If you've never seen it, look up the Amazon entry in here. There's also a lot of really cool stuff in here. It comes from a simplified history of the game. 5th edition is actually, I actually like 5th edition. I like every edition, honestly. I've played every edition at this point. I've played some Pathfinder. And I love them all. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. A game like this was super light on rules, and people could adapt them on their own. And that's how a lot of people ended up becoming game designers, is by adapting their home rules and doing stuff like that. Now, this one is obviously very early on. There was really only a few classes in here. There is the sort of fighting man, which is, well, it's a fighter. I mean, it's a fighter by a different name, but it's definitely a version of the fighter. There are magic users, which are wizards, nominally. And of course the clerics. Now the clerics can fight, but they're there to heal as well. And they have weird rules in here that later editions got rid of. Things like in that they have the use of magic armor and all non-edged magic weapons, no arrows. Plus they have a number of their own spells. In addition, they are able to use more of the magical items that are than the fighting men. So yeah, they're interesting. They've got dwarves, and dwarves may opt to be the fighting class, but they can never progress beyond 6th level. There's also some rules in here about how, let's see, they have a high level of magic resistance. They are the only character able to fully employ a +3 magic warhammer. So yeah, it's got some interesting things in here about, the weird limits that they have on here. Elves may switch between fighting men or magic users. They may not progress beyond 4th level fighting man, nor 8th level magic user. They have a brief snippet for halflings as well, but they may never go above 4th level. Balance was not really a thing in these early rules. It was a fairly new game, and they hadn't quite worked out what balance meant in this game. Your method of determining your stats was 3d6. That was it. And you assign them as you rolled them. There was no assign them where you want. It's down the column and what you assign them to. And yeah, so it's a very simple game, but it also had some weird, odd little side things. There's a list of spells in this book. It also came including Chainmail, which was the war game that they had written first. Gygax and John Perrin wrote. I think this is a thing that people should go and look at. Obviously, you're not going to be able to pick up the physical copy as easily. It runs pretty high on eBay. But you could pick up the PDF for a few bucks. And I recommend you do it. Just so you can see where the game came from. And sort of follow where it started and where it ended up. Now, a lot of the OSR guys are like, well, we should return to this simple form. And in some ways, I kind of agree with them. There are a lot of things in the OSR side of things that I don't agree with, but there is some charm to the very simple rule system that you had this bare framework of rules, and then anything else the game master sort of went with. He tried and figured it out at the table. And if the player wanted to do something wonky that the rules hadn't described, they could just, give me this kind of roll. Or, no, they could say, no, that doesn't work, but as a general rule, I think saying, no, that doesn't work without something hidden into that, is bad. It's not fun. So, but there's certainly a range of customization that in some ways the newer systems don't manage to do, because the customizations that they cook into the system limit you to those customizations. Whereas this was, here's a very light system, and just, whatever you happen to do at the time to make this odd case work is how you did it. You made it up on the fly. And that was pretty interesting. This is also the set that introduced us to things like beholders. A lot of the traditions of D&D start here. A lot of the early things that you think of as D&D start here. So reading this helps you to understand how those things began. Things that, people who come later into D&D might not realize are things like there weren't half-orcs or half-elves in the original game. There weren't a clear set of racial rules in general. There weren't rangers. There weren't rogues. There weren't paladins. There weren't a lot of things that we just accept as innate to D&D now. So when people complain about, well, they introduced this new thing, and, we don't need this new thing, I think, well, if we're going back to the original, we didn't need monks or bards or rogues or rangers, but we kind of did. And that's, that's how the game evolves. It's supposed to change over time. But this is definitely the prize of my collection of role-playing games at this point. It is something I'm very happy to have, and it will please receive a place of honor in my collection of stuff, if I can ever have time and space to put everything where it needs to be, of course. But, I got this day. I wanted to talk about my feelings about this set. This set, while maybe not the game of choice for me right now, is an important part of understanding the hobby in general, and and understanding where the game starts helps me to understand where the game is going. That's my thoughts. If you like this, subscribe, share, go check out the Patreon if you can. If you can't, it's cool. We're cool. We're all cool here. How are you? I will talk to you guys later. See ya.